Hi class, I chose to do Mary Mcleod Bethune because I was really searching for a strong, influential black woman in history who inspired many when they didn't really offer African Americans or women much to begin with. And her story just completely blew my mind, so I wanted to share more about her with you guys. To give a brief biography on Mary Mcleod Bethune, she was born in 1875 in Maysville, South Carolina. She was born to former slaves, and her family mostly picked cotton for a living, but she had always been passionate about school. She was the only one from her family to really go and get an education. She would always come back and teach her family things that she had learned. And as a young woman, she became highly decorated, graduating from Scotia Seminary, which is modern-day Barbara Scotia College in Concord, North Carolina. 2 years later, she also attended Dwight Moody's Bible Institute for Home and Foreign Missions in Chicago. She also graduated from there, and then she began her career as an educator. And aside from being an esteemed educator, she was also known as many other titles, such as an advisor and an activist in her life. Mary Mcleod Bethune was also known as the First Lady of the Struggle, the First Lady of Negro America, and the female Booker T. Washington for her dedication to improving African American lives. In 1904, after she was married, she moved down to Daytona Beach, where she founded the Daytona Educational and Industrial Training School for Negro girls. This would later be merged with Cookman Institute in 1923, and it is now a four-year college called Bethune-Cookman, still located in Daytona Beach, Florida today. Also in her time in Daytona, she orchestrated Mcleod Hospital in around 1911. This hospital offered care to black individuals who couldn't get proper care from white hospitals. In 1935, she founded the National Council of Negro Women, taking on a more political role and having a hand in the civil rights movement. She advised at least 5 presidents. More prominently, she served as an advisor on minority affairs to President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Together, they created the Black Cabinet, formerly known as the Federal Council of Negro Affairs. She also remained friends with Franklin D. Roosevelt's wife as well. She was also on the Committee on National Defense in the early 50s and traveled to Liberia as a U.S. delegate. So there were many things that Mary Mcleod Bethune did accomplish in her life, but some things were a little bit more unique than others. I think that in this time period, in the early 1900s, as I mentioned, there wasn't really a lot that black people in general could do, but let alone black women. And I feel like Mary Mcleod Bethune was the hope for black women to get connected with so many powerful individuals from history. And she used her platforms and she used her connections to make life better for people like her. The most unique fact that stuck out to me was that Mary Mcleod Bethune taught here in Augusta, Georgia. At the beginning of her career, which stretched over years and has many, many different accomplishments on every level, Bethune taught at Haynes Normal and Industrial Institute in Augusta, Georgia. Haynes was both founded and ran by an Augusta native, Lucy Craft Laney. Today in Augusta, Georgia, Lucy Laney has a high school named after her, and it's also a museum right next to the school where you can go and see a lot of her things and where she used to live. So I was already familiar with her, but to know that someone such as Mary Mcleod Bethune was taught by her or she worked for her was very inspirational. Since I am from Augusta, Georgia, I found it very inspirational to see 2 black women, both born to former slaves, forge so much history while educating the youth here. And this was very important because it served as a foundation for Mary Mcleod, who would take Lucy Laney's teachings and do more great things for African Americans, not just in Augusta, Georgia, but all across the United States. One thing that Mary Mcleod Bethune said about Lucy Laney was, "I was so impressed with her fearlessness, her amazing touch in every respect, and energy that seemed inexhaustible, and her mighty power to command respect and admiration from her students and all who knew her. She handled her domain with the art of a master." I feel like in a lot of stories, people focus so much on what the person has accomplished and what they've done in the end, and they don't really pay attention to what they were doing in the beginning. I think that her time in Augusta, Georgia under Lucy Laney, maybe she learned so much from another strong black woman in this time period, and she took that with her, and she ended up opening her own school later. It's just a thought that stuck out to me, and I believe that had she never experienced that here with Lucy Laney, then maybe she wouldn't have went and contributed her own platform in Daytona Beach. So, with that being said, Mary Mcleod Bethune wasn't always a world-renowned educator, activist, or an advisor to presidents. She didn't begin as this powerful African-American woman in history. She began as a little girl who was passionate about school, walking miles there and back just to learn every day. That little girl went on to further her education and began a career in teaching others and inspiring others. Her teaching career landed her in Augusta, Georgia for a time, learning from another daughter of former slaves who would instill her teachings in her. After working under Lucy Laney, Mary Mcleod Bethune would move on to found her own school in Daytona Beach for girls. From there on, that school also became a four-year college that still stands today. She also became one of the most influential black women in history. And this small-known fact is important because a lot of times we focus so much on the end and little on the beginning. I believe that there were many steps and influences on the great Mary Mcleod Bethune in a time period where she was of two minorities, an African American and a woman. She was able to learn from Lucy Laney, who was of the same and accomplished so much. Every success story has a foundation, and I am proud to live in a city she once walked, learned, and taught in. In the beginning, I chose Mary Mcleod Bethune because I was just looking for a strong, influential black woman in history who did many things. But one thing I didn't know was that she actually taught in Augusta, Georgia, where I'm from. And that moment of teaching might have served as a foundation as to why she decided to start her own school in Daytona Beach. So that was very inspiring for me, and I'm very happy that I chose Mary Mcleod Bethune. I hope you guys did enjoy it. I would like to read one of my favorite quotes that I found of hers from her last will and testament. It reads, "I leave you love, I leave you hope, I leave you the challenge of developing confidence in one another. I leave you a thirst for education, I leave you a respect for the use of power, I leave you faith, I leave you racial dignity, I leave you a desire to live harmoniously with your fellow men. I leave you finally a responsibility to our young people." Thank you.